for White. Handoff to Moore. Back to Crowder. They got the 2 to the quarterback, White. And they lead by 3. 2-point conversion. Crowder to the quarterback, and it's 34-31, the Jets.
How about that? You're making your first NFL start. You're thrown for over 400 yards. You just threw your 3rd touchdown pass, and now you catch the 2-point conversion.
Welcome back, everyone. It's David, and Week 8 was a wild one, to put it mildly. We were fortunate to have this week's NFL Sunday fall on Halloween, as some of the costumes on display were incredible. But no one beat Aaron Rodgers, who grew out his hair for a whole year just so he could dress up like John Wick. As for the game action, everything we thought we knew about the league was a lie. The undefeated Cardinals couldn't get it done at home against a Packers team that was missing their top 2 wideouts. All the goodwill the Chargers built up at the start of the season is fading rapidly. And what a week it was to be a backup QB. If you like what you see, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a follow on social media. Zach Wilson should not be starting another game in 2021. Trevor Siemian and Cooper Rush both delivered huge wins for their teams, and it was wonderful to see them succeed after what they've been through up until this point. But how about Mike White? As someone on Twitter pointed out, he wasn't even the first thing that came up when you Googled his name, and after seeing how the O-line failed Wilson, as well as what the Bengals did to the Ravens last week, it seemed like he was going to get thrown to the Wolves. 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a win later, the starting job is clearly his to stay. What White did wasn't exactly spectacular, and this doesn't prove that he's so much better than Zach Wilson, but the important thing was that it got the job done. The biggest difference between him and Wilson is that White took advantage of whenever the defense gave him short and easy completions. Some people like to bemoan the check down Charlies in the league, and if you're a rookie that got drafted 2nd overall, it can be easy to buy into your own hype. But going for the hero play every time isn't advisable, and until Wilson can learn to be more disciplined and more patient with his throws, he would benefit from taking a backseat to Mike White. Then again, the New York market is ravenous, so if White comes out and throws for 96 yards and 3 interceptions in his next game, we should expect to see Wilson back out there in no time. As for the Bengals, it can be easy to get discouraged by this loss, particularly after all the promise that came with the Ravens result. That's to say nothing of that dumb flag on Mike Hilton. Trust me, the less that's said about that, the better. But the fact that the Jets only have 2 wins on the year, and they came against 2 division leaders, tells us 2 things. 1, that the AFC is on crack, and 2, these types of losses will happen all the time. It's not any given Sunday for nothing. That said, this loss did expose Cincinnati's big flaw, which is the lack of serious pressure that their defensive line brings. Outside of Trey Hendrickson, no one else strikes fear in opposing QBs. The simplest solution would have been to trade for Von Miller. While he's old and carries a big cap hit, he's the type of player that serious contenders were looking to bring in to put themselves over the top. He's also got 4.5 sacks on the year, which would have been good for 2nd most on the Bengals. As for the actual team that got him, we'll get to that in a bit. It was pretty clear early on that this would be a long and painful season for the Jets, and that good moments like this were going to be hard to come by. But good luck finding a better story than this around the league all year. The Cardinals are official frauds for losing to that version of the Packers. Sorry, but I don't make the rules. Unlike the AFC, it's been clear all year who the best teams in the NFC have been. 5 contenders have separated themselves from the rest of the pack, and the only thing that's left to determine is who amongst them is fraudulent. There's still a lot of time to turn things around, but this is not a good look for the Cardinals. If they want to prove that their undefeated start hasn't been all smoke and mirrors, and that their season won't go the way of the Steelers last year, these are the type of games they must win. Despite all of Green Bay's absences, the Cardinals were at a bit of a disadvantage themselves. For a 7-0 team to have more than half the stadium rooting against you in prime time is a bad look. Perhaps that was what contributed to Kyler Murray's off night. After all, Rasul Douglas was a member of the Cardinals just a few weeks ago, so he might have thought he threw to one of his teammates for the game-winning touchdown, especially with how loud the crowd roared after Douglas's catch. In all seriousness, if Douglas plays with that same passion week in and week out, the happiest man in Green Bay will be Jair Alexander, who will no longer have to worry about propping up Kevin King's dumbass. Despite the loss, there were some positives to take away from Arizona's performance. They did well to limit Rodgers to 184 yards passing, though a lot of that was due to Green Bay's game plan of running it down their throats. And the defense came up with a goal line stand of their life when it looked like all hope was lost. Arizona's next few games will be crucial tilts against divisional opponents, so that will be the ultimate litmus test of what their chances will be like come playoff time. Garoppolo's performance against the Bears proves that bullying doesn't work, especially since he prevailed against a QB whose fan base did bully the team into starting. Even the worst decision makers at the NFL level are better equipped than the average fan at deciding who should start. After all, the fans aren't the ones seeing their progress every day in practice. The fans aren't the ones talking to the QBs day in and day out and seeing where their head's at. The fans aren't the ones drawing up game plans that are tailored to who they're facing that week. Trey Lance Hive is understandably frustrated, but it's reached the point of toxicity. It's okay to question going back to Jimmy G after his horrific performance against the Colts, but actively rooting for one of your team's quarterbacks to fail is never okay. Conversely, I'm the furthest thing from a Jimmy G fan, but seeing him put up the numbers he did in the face of how much scrutiny he's received league-wide was pretty amazing. The biggest reason fans want to see Lance over Garoppolo is because the former is far more exciting to watch. He can make plays out of nothing with his legs, which is also what Fields did throughout this game. Garoppolo is not a dink and dunk quarterback, but he is predictable. But against the Bears, we did see him improvise when he had to and use his legs more than we're used to seeing. He had 2 rushing scores in the end zone as a result. As for his deep throws, Deebo Samuel deserves most of the credit for the way he routinely left his defenders in the dust with his route running. But Garoppolo gets some love too for the precision on some of these balls. Knowing Niners fans, this win will only temporarily quiet them. The moment Jimmy G has another bad game, they're going to jump all over Kyle Shanahan. But Lance was taken third for a reason. He's not going anywhere. And he's not miles better than Jimmy G is already. So until it's definitely time to start him, try and exercise some patience. The Cowboys learned how to win without Dak Prescott. And that's bad news for the rest of the league. When it was announced before game time that Prescott wasn't fit to play, fans suddenly got terrifying flashbacks of last season. When Dak was out for the season, every aspect of that team shut down. And while the defense and running game are much improved this season, they didn't do a good enough job of addressing their backup situation in the offseason, leading many to wonder what would happen if Prescott was forced to miss the start again. Cooper Rush deserves his flowers. All he did was outplay Kirk Cousins on the Sunday night stage and lead his team on a game-winning drive. But this win came down to their defense. They limited the Vikings to a staggering 1 of 13 success rate on third downs. The Cowboys did have some breaks go their way, like that delay of game on the defense call. Seriously, I didn't even know that was a thing until then. They were also aided by Cousins' performance issues in primetime games, which have been well documented, although this was a new low, even for him. But the Cowboys demonstrated a clear next man up attitude in this win, which can definitely carry over in future games that they have to play without Dak. Now that the Cowboys are a mortal lock to win their division, they can play it safe with regards to Prescott's injury. This formula probably won't work as well against a better team or a quarterback who isn't afraid of the dark, but if they can maintain at least a 500 pace while Dak is out, that would be a success, since all that matters now is having him at 100% for the playoffs. Let's close this out with a recap of the trade deadline. Anyone who's used to the manic trade deadline that we see in the NBA was left disappointed, because once again, the NFL deadline was marked by the deals that didn't get made. Watson stayed put. Allen Robinson still miserable as ever in Chicago. LeBron turned on GM mode to try and get Odell out of Cleveland, but even that didn't happen. The biggest impact move definitely belonged to the Rams, trading for Von Miller. But it also leaves them with a razor-thin margin for error, as falling short of winning a Super Bowl on home turf will be seen as a disappointment. The Rams have been one of the more impressive teams this season, though their schedule hasn't given them many chances to prove it. That said, all the moves that they've made were with playoff success in mind. The Rams certainly didn't need Von Miller, especially when they already have Aaron Donald or Leonard Floyd. But anytime you can acquire a Super Bowl MVP, you've got to do it. He's certainly going to feel a lot less pressure than he did in Denver when they were on a losing slide, and the task of righting the ship fell squarely on him. Now that he doesn't need to be the guy, he could end up performing more to his capabilities. But while the pressure may be off of Miller individually, as a collective, it just got turned up to 11. Their reasons for coming up short in the playoffs no longer apply. They can't point to their inexperience at quarterback, since Stafford is an elite passer. They can't say he doesn't have help either, since Cooper Kupp has ascended to the top tier of wide receivers. And they can't point to Sean McVay's youth. They've spent 5 seasons in the system now. And if they come up short, this year they'll be left with just 1 pick during the first 3 rounds of the upcoming draft. Plus, win or lose, they'll have traded 2 of those picks for a guy who could end up leaving them after this year. All this isn't to say they shouldn't have made the gamble. I applaud the Rams for doing all they can to close the gap with the Bucs. But if they can't bring a title to Tinseltown this year, their outlook could get bleak in a hurry.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Lingo Sports and Lingo News for a whole lot more just like this.